like adult fantasy and you haven't read this, you're doing something wrong. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing my top 10 books of 2021. Now before I get into my top 10 books, I just want to do a quick bit on stats. I contemplated doing a separate video for it, but I don't go into it enough to do that. So instead let's do a quick cap. So I have read 137 books this year, which sounds amazing, but I was furloughed for quite a bit this year, so I got a lot of reading done. That meant a total of 49,038 pages read. Out of those 137 books, we have 37 5 stars, which is pretty good. I am considering that maybe some of them shouldn't be 5 stars still, but we'll save that for potentially another video if you're interested. We have 62 4-star books, which 4-star is the average rating that I tend to give things. 37 3 stars, only 4 2 stars, no 1 stars, and 4 DNFs, which honestly, that's not bad at all. I'm really pleased with the reading year. Now let's get into the top 10 books. This is in no particular order. This was actually quite hard to do. The top 8 I had ready. I was like, yes, I know exactly what books, but then choosing the last 2 spots, that was a bit more of a contest to be like, what one gets it. But we have finalised it. I'm rambling. Let's just go straight to the books. So one of the books that does get it, I am in the middle of reading. As always, I have pre-filmed, so this is ahead of schedule. I read it for the first time when it first came out and loved it, and my reread I am loving just as much, so this definitely has to be on this for one of my favourite books of the year, and that is A Call to Silver Flames by Cerulean C. This is the 4th book in the Occult Thorns and Roses series, and personally my favourite. I am not a massive fan of her Occult Thorns and Roses series, don't get me wrong, I still like them. It's a solid 4-star series, however, this is my favourite one. I love it so much. We are following Nesta, who is Feyre's older sister. Now the Occult Thorns and Roses series, in the first 3 books we are following Feyre, and she is protecting her family, trying to feed them when they've got no income or anything, but then she gets taken into the Fey world and you see a lot that goes on. The first book is a bit like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then it all changes, everything gets flipped on its head in the second book. I'll have to admit, out of the first 3 books, the second book is my favourite, and then we kind of get drawn into this war that's going on and everything, and then this 4th book we are following the repercussions of that war, mainly from Nesta's perspective. You also get Cassian's perspective in this as well. This world is filled with different creatures, different Fey creatures, and I really do recommend it. I loved it. 5 stars both times I've read it, and yeah, Cerulean C is just a comfort author to me. I like all of her books. They're always easy to pick up, they're easy to follow, although that the plot lines and that may not be the best out there, the characters are so well done. I love it so much. So yeah, loving this. This has definitely got to be up there. Changing pace, we have Lady Susan's by Jane Austen, and this was so good. I have to admit, I've read quite a bit of Jane Austen and I was contemplating between this and Pride and Prejudice. However, I think Lady Susan's just steals it for me. I just loved it so much. It is a short book. This is actually comprised of a few different books, and Lady Susan's is literally just a series of letters, and I love it. It just throws you in there with what's going on with these characters, and Lady Susan is seen as this promiscuous woman that is just stealing husbands left, right and centre, and I just love it. It is so witty, it's so brutal in the way they talk about each other, it's just fantastic. I think this is really good, especially if you're not sure if you're going to like Jane Austen's writing. I would start off with this one because it works so well and it gives you a taste of what she has to bring. Her other actual novels are very good, they're just slowed down compared to this one, and you still have that same wit, that same humour and sarcasm throughout her books, but they are just a little bit more slower, whereas this just throws you straight in. I love it. I thought it was brilliant. It made me laugh out loud in places. Yeah, definitely my favourite that I've read so far. Then we have another classic, and that is Withering Heights by Emily Bronte. I was thinking about this because I knew I enjoyed a lot of classics this year. I've read a lot. I kind of took a deep dive into reading classics this year, from reading hardly any apart from what I had to read for school to then jumping in to read them for just my own enjoyment. And I was thinking about all of them, and the one that just keeps coming back to me is Withering Heights. It was fantastic. It was only 4 stars because this book is split into 2 parts. So you have one part where you're following this gentleman who gets caught in the snowstorm, ends up becoming quite ill, and so he is strapped in his house for a little while, and while he's there he inquires about the owner of this house that he's staying at, that he's renting, and then the person that is nursing him tells him the story, and it's brilliant. It's one of obsession, of love lost, of ghosts. It's just very, very good. It's very passionate. It's very angry as well, and I thought it was fantastic. Now, the second half of the book, again, wasn't bad. It felt like a repetition, but just with the younger generation. Again, not bad. It was just didn't quite live up to that first bit. But I think because it was a story and you had the ghost element to it, the atmosphere was perfect. And this is amazing to read in winter because it is freezing, it's set during a snowstorm, and yeah, I definitely think this is one that's going to stay with me for a while and definitely contends for one of my favourite gothic literature pieces of work because it's just phenomenal, and this edition is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, then we have something completely different, and that is a YA sci-fi, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't like sci-fi. I'm not a massive fan of it. However, I have been proven wrong with this, and that's Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I love this. I need to get the 3rd book that's out, but I'm waiting for it in paperback because the first 2 I have are in paperback. I loved this. My mum also loves it. It's just such a good book. So we're following our main character, Spencer, and she is someone that wants nothing more than to be a fighter pilot because we're in this world where the humans are kind of trapped on this planet with this species called Krell constantly trying to kill them. And so to be a fighter pilot and to defend your world and everything is seen as one of the best things you can possibly do. To be branded a coward is the most despicable thing that can happen, and unfortunately Spencer's father is declared a coward, but Spencer refuses to believe this, so she fights really hard to become a fighter pilot even though everything is stacked against her, and she wants to do it to prove that her father is not a coward, to find out what actually happened. And this is brilliant. I love it. You have a found family in here, you have Embot, who is just amazing. You end up loving him so much. He's a plane, but he's fantastic. And you also have Doomslug in this, and it's brilliant. I mean, I love Brandon Sanderson anyway, and I was contemplating between this and one of his other books, but I have to admit, this one just stole it for me. It was so good, and I did not expect to like this. I picked it up on a whim and fell in love with it, and then my mum read it, and she fell in love with it, and so it's just like, this is brilliant. Like, we're both really enjoying it, both looking forward to that 3rd book when I get it, and it's a really good time. I would highly recommend, if you aren't interested in sci-fi that much but you do like Brandon Sanderson's other works, do try this because it will surprise you. Or even if you have read things like Illuminate Files or something like that, I would then also read this. I haven't read Illuminate Files, but what I've heard about it is so reminiscent of this, and I just think, it's brilliant. I really, really enjoyed this series. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It's definitely going to stay with me for a while. And then again, a book that I didn't expect to like because it's a contemporary romance, and I am not a contemporary romance reader. However, Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Fantastic. Absolutely bleeding fantastic. I loved this so much. The tagline on the back says, "What happens when America's first son falls in love with the Prince of Wales?" I mean, it's brilliant. I loved it. It's so funny, it's so enjoyable. This is definitely a comfort book. I actually listened to it via audiobook and loved it so much I had to get the physical copy, and I really do actually want to read this in physical format because I just loved that book so damn much. I really cannot wait to actually reread this and read it in a physical format. It's my absolute favourite. I thought it was brilliant. If you just need that cosy comfort read with a bit of romance, go for this one. It works so well. What I've realised is after this I also read Boyfriend Material, which is very similar, has that same sort of trope to it where you have these 2 guys end up falling in love with each other, but it has more of a fake dating romance in it, and I've realised that I do like gay romance with some form of upper class royalty in it that just complicates it for no reason, and it just works for me. Apparently I really enjoy it. But out of the two, Red, White and Royal Blue will always have the top spot. Then we have a mythology inspired book, which I love retellings. They are my absolute favourite, and this one takes the cake for being the best one that I've read this year, and that is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Honestly, when people go to me, what are your top 3 books of the year? This is one of them. It's just brilliant. So we are following the story of Achilles. We're seeing it from Patroclus' perspective, and in this one Patroclus loves Achilles and it's reciprocated, and I think it's beautiful. Clearly I have a soft spot for gay romance, but it's just fantastic. It's so beautiful. It's filled with mythology. I love it so much. The world is amazing, and it does take place over years because you see them as boys and then they grow up together until obviously the Battle of Troy and everything that happens there. Again, I went into this not too hopeful because I'd read Circe and didn't like it that much, but my mum read this. Well, I got her to read it for me and she really liked it. She said it was really, really good, and then I read it and fell in love with it, and yeah, it was brilliant. I really enjoyed this story. If you're looking for something that is filled with mythology, this is perfect for it. Madeline Miller's writing is absolutely phenomenal, and the story of Achilles, you don't see it as this person who is just this hero who is absolutely amazing and perfect everything he does. You see a lot more realistic view of him about how he does have too much hubris. He is a bit arrogant and everything, but how Patroclus loves him anyway and what he is willing to do for that love. And I just think it's really good. It's really good. You should pick it up. Okay, then we have another book that I listened to on audiobook, fell in love with, so had to get the physical copy, and that is House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I really want to get TJ Klune's other books. I know he's come out with something else. Now, as much as I said I haven't read this one, it is actually a little bit battered, and that's because I gave it to a customer at work. So I was working in opticians. One of the girls there loves reading, so this young girl that always comes in for her glasses and stuff, and so I was like, you know what, give this a try. She loved it, absolutely loved it. So I'm really pleased that she also loved it, because this is a book that is for everyone. It is for children and it is for adults, and it's just lovely. So we are following Linus Baker, and he is a social care worker. Really. He goes around to these schools to make sure that the children are being looked after well, but there is a slight difference because these children all have unique abilities about them, and so they are kept in these specialised homes. And he is approached by extremely upper management to go to this particular home that is declared the most dangerous children, and Linus is understandably a bit worried. But then he goes there, he finds these children have been poorly treated by the surrounding town just because of their prejudices against them. Their actual home that they're in is amazing and lovely, and they're told to be themselves, and I think this is a beautiful tale all about that, about not judging people by what you hear, but judge them by themselves and how they act and who they actually are. And I just think it's such a heartwarming, beautiful tale, and just like Red, White and Royal Blue, it's definitely one that I want to read soon physically, because I really did enjoy listening to this book. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's so magical and wonderful and just heartwarming. So yeah, I really want to get TJ Klune's recent book that's come out, which is Under the Whispering Door, but again I'm waiting till paperback comes out. But yeah, this is definitely a heartwarming book. I might actually get my mum to read this. Mum, I know you're watching this. This is the next book you're going to read. This is going to be good. You'll like it. Just tell her what to do, you know. Anyway, continuing on, we also have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I read both of her books, so Night Circus and The Starless Sea, and I'll have to admit, between the two, I do love this one. It's so beautiful and magical, and it's just something that when I initially finished reading Starless Sea, I was like, yes, I prefer that book to this. But actually, the more I think about it, the more I prefer this one. Like, the Starless Sea, don't get me wrong, is really good. I really like the adventure and everything in it. However, this book is just perfect. When I think of autumn, this is the book that came to mind. When I'm thinking I want to sit down and read a book that is just a standalone but has magic in it and is just a whimsical story but with a few darker bits to it as well. Again, this is the one that I was always thinking of. This book has stayed with me throughout the whole year, again as one that I just keep recommending to people because of how much I enjoyed it. I actually picked this up in a charity shop because I was always like, oh, I'm never going to like this book, I'm never going to want to read it. I don't know why I ever thought that. It's fantastic. I would say if you liked Carvel by Stephanie Gabar, then I would pick up this. This is basically an adult version of that. In my opinion, a little bit better as well. It's got that same vibe where you're having this circus that comes alive with magic. You're following two characters and they are apprentice magicians that are being pitted against each other in this sort of contest. They don't know what it is they're meant to be winning. They don't know how they win. They have no idea what's going on at all. But you just have their two mentors who are more fighting each other but using these two people to do it. And it's got that darker element to it, but it's also so magical and so whimsical and perfect vibes for something that I just want to curl up with a hot drink and just read this. It was just so good. Then we have another retelling which I just adored and I've spoken about quite a bit on this channel, and that is Vows Fair by Hannah Capin. This book is phenomenal. I loved it so much. This is a Lady Macbeth retelling which did make me read Macbeth the play by William Shakespeare, and it was amazing seeing all of the connections that Hannah Capin made between them. So this one is actually a bit of a difficult story. So we're following our main character Jade, and Jade is someone that is very well off. She comes from a very well off family and she has this tight knit group of friends, but when they gate crash this party she ends up getting drugged and raped. It's done really well, very tastefully done, so you don't actually see that bit on paper, but you definitely know exactly what's happened to her. And so she and her friends set about coming up with a plan to get her revenge, and it's so well done. So if you know Macbeth, then you know what's going to happen in this, and it's just done so well. This is a story of revenge. It's a story of just getting her own back for what has been committed, and it's just brilliant. I love how inclusive this book is as well, and I love this friendship, how they are there for her and will be there for her the whole step of the way. It's very, very good. I really enjoyed it. I ate it up. This is a book that it's really good. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, even on the back here it just says, you know, fierce, vicious and electric, unapologetically feminist battle cry, gorgeous, scorchingly emotional, sharply feminist, bloody brilliant. I mean, it is all of those things, and it is about a female taking stand and getting revenge to what has been done to her, and it's really good. It is so good. It's very impactful, very powerful, and again, this is one of those books that is like, if I had to choose just three, this would be up there as well. It was just chef's kiss, brilliant, loved it, thought it was brilliant. I mean, it's just powerful throughout all of this, and yeah, brilliant, loved it. Okay, and my last book of 2021, that is my top 10. We have Wrath by John Gwynne. Now this is the last book in the Faithful and Fallen quartet. I thought it was fantastic. It was such an explosive ending. I loved it so much. So I've spoke about this series quite a lot, especially, well, at the start of the year, quite a lot, because this is a series that I picked up at the end of 2020 and then finished at the start of 2021, and I was reading it where every book I had to read the next one each month because it was so good. I just couldn't wait in between it. It was so good. This is something that I would say epic fantasy. It's up there. It's up there with The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson, and I love The Cosmere, but this is up there. It's fantastic, it's amazing. There are so many different characters, so many different things going on, and it's so difficult. Our characters never get a break, the bad guys never blimmin' stay dead, and it's just so good, so good. Like, if you like adult fantasy and you haven't picked up this series, what are you doing? Stop what you're doing and go get this series. Like, it's so good. So this series, we're following a host of different characters, but they're basically kind of split to good and evil, except you don't really know who's good and who's evil in this world. Like, you think one way, then things get changed, but there are lots of other things going on in this, and we have angels, demons, giants, giant lizard things. Like, there's just so much. We also have elemental magic, and it's fantastic. There is so much going on in this book, and I mean, I loved it. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the main characters in this, although there's quite a few, it's always the same ones, and each character is relevant to the story. So it's not like something where I felt overwhelmed by Game of Thrones, because there were so many characters and some of them weren't really relevant in later books, and so I'm like, I don't understand the point of this character. Like, no, all the characters that you meet in this book are relevant and important to the storyline, and it's taken place over years. And in the first book it is slower because you're setting up the world and you're setting up our characters, seeing them as they're young to growing up, but it's worth it because the next 3 books are just non-stop. Every single time you think they've made progress, they haven't. They've been pushed back another like 3 steps. It's all go, it's intense, it's so good. It's so good, and the ending is so bittersweet. If you like adult fantasy and you haven't read this, you're doing something wrong. But this book definitely had to be up there. Like, I was sitting down thinking about what my 10 top books are, and I knew that this series, like this finisher, had to be on there because it was just brilliant. And it's one I am always going to recommend. When someone asks me for an epic adult fantasy series, this is going to be the one that I recommend because it's brilliant. This is really, really good. But there we have it. Those are my top 10 books of 2021. Do let me know what were some of your favourites. If you can't do just one, then what were your top 3 or 5 or however many, because honestly, I am more than happy to check them out. I am so happy with all of these books. They were all 5 stars apart from like 1, and yet they're just they've stayed with me. I have enjoyed them so much. It's been such a good time. Like, out of all the books that I've read, out of 137 books, these 10 are the 10 that I can go, if I could only read these out of the year, it would have been an amazing blimmin' year. Anyway, I am rambling like crazy, so let's put the emoji of the day. Let's go with a star, because we are doing the stars of 2021 books. So let's go with that. And if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it that thumbs up, subscribe, comment to let me know that you're here. Social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next one.